I was supposed to die under a collapsing ceiling, crushed, forgotten, erased. My husband held his mistress while I bled alone. But fate gave me another shot. In this life I didn't beg. I didn't break. I took back my home, exposed their lies, and handed them both to the police. She tried to kill me twice. Once with a smile, once with a knife. But in the end, I lived. She rotted. They say when your life flashes before your eyes, it's quiet. Like the final scene of a movie. Mine wasn't. It was chaos. Screaming, shattering glass, falling beams, and the unmistakable sound of concrete breaking apart. I remember all of it, the smell of scorched oil, the metallic taste of fear, and the precise moment I realized I was going to die. It was supposed to be a regular lunch. Jason, my husband, had picked me up from my checkup, saying we should eat somewhere nice. You need to get out more, he'd said with a smile that used to mean something. We went to a small hot pot place near his office. I liked it for the familiar spice, the quiet booths, the nostalgic warmth. He liked it because it was convenient. And because it was close to Summer's studio. Summer Holland. His friend. She showed up less than 10 minutes after we sat down, acting surprised to see us there. Jason didn't even blink. He simply scooted over and let her sit beside him like she belonged there. He didn't. But I smiled and said nothing because that's what I'd been trained to do. It wasn't until the ground trembled beneath us that everything changed. A gas leak next door. A faulty pipe. A freak accident. The hot pot restaurant beside ours exploded. The shockwave hit like a train. Our table rattled. Plates crashed. The ceiling groaned, fractured, then began to fall. Jason moved instinctively. He lunged to his left, toward Summer. He wrapped himself around her, shielding her like a hero from a movie. I had no time to react. A steel beam struck my leg, slicing it open like paper. Something heavy landed on my shoulder, pinning me in place. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. My face scraped the floor tiles and I tasted blood. Through the dust I saw them. Jason crouched over Summer's body, whispering something. Her eyes wide, clinging to his shirt like a lifeline. My husband. Her lover. Only after the debris settled did he turn. Only when he heard my shallow breath did he seem to remember that I existed. Rachel. His voice cracked as he scrambled toward me. Oh my God, Rachel. I was losing consciousness, but I felt his arms gather me up, his hands gripping my wrist, his voice desperate. I'm sorry, he whispered. I thought it was going to fall left. I didn't know, Rachel, I didn't know. I didn't reply. I didn't have the strength. But I didn't need to say anything. He didn't know where the ceiling was going to fall. He didn't even try to look. He just moved. Toward her. That was instinct. And instincts don't lie. The hospital lights were too bright. Sterile. Cold. Unforgiving. I watched Jason run back and forth across the room. Holding my hand. Fetching nurses. Apologizing over and over again. People praised him. Said I was lucky to have such a devoted husband. That he was a real catch. I lay there nodding, smiling faintly, but inside, I was already gone. Because I remembered the truth. Jason didn't save me. He saved her. But I never made it to surgery. My vitals plummeted. Too much blood lost. Too much damage. The last thing I heard was a nurse yelling my name. The last thing I saw was Jason's silhouette standing at the foot of my bed. And then, nothing. I expected darkness. Or light. Or something. Then I opened my eyes. And the world was still. My leg didn't hurt. There was no bandage on my shoulder. I wasn't in a hospital bed. I was home. In our bed. In our room. My phone buzzed beside me. The date glowed on the screen. 2 days before the explosion. I sat up so quickly the blanket tangled around my legs. I touched my arms, my face, my hair. Everything intact. I stared around the room, heart pounding. Jason was in the shower. I could hear the water running, the faint hum of his voice as he sang off key. Like nothing ever happened. Like I hadn't just died under a collapsed ceiling while he shielded another woman with his body. I stumbled out of bed and rushed to the window. The same street. The same cars. The same sky. I was back. Somehow I was back. I sat on the edge of the bed staring at my hands. In another life, those hands had clutched blood-soaked tiles as I bled out. In that life, Jason had chosen Summer. Not once. But twice. In this one, I had time. Time to change it. Time to protect what was mine. Time to take everything back. Because now I knew something I hadn't understood before. I wasn't married to a good man who made a mistake. I was married to a man who never chose me to begin with. No. I wasn't going to choose him either. When the ambulance doors opened, the world blinked bright and white again. This time it wasn't blood loss dragging me into the hospital. It was a carefully staged performance. I lay back on the stretcher, eyes half-lidded, breathing slow, like a perfect porcelain doll freshly cracked. No one questioned the bruises on my arm or the limp in my leg. They simply rushed to admit me again just like last time. Except now everything was different. I was alive. I was aware. And I was acting. Jason arrived less than an hour after I was admitted. Hair perfectly tousled, tie loosened just enough to appear rushed, concern written across his face like he'd practiced it in the mirror. "Rachel," he breathed, brushing my hair back from my forehead. "You scared me to death." I murmured. "Sorry. I'm just glad you're okay." He squeezed my hand. "You didn't tell me you were feeling faint again." "I didn't want to worry you," I said sweetly, smiling up at him. Because what was the point? This wasn't the part where I confronted him, not yet. This was the part where I let him act like a hero. The nurses adored him. They cooed over his visits, gushed about how lucky I was to have a man who came by every evening after work. "He even brings fresh flowers," one nurse whispered to the woman in the bed next to mine. "So rare these days." I didn't correct them. I didn't point out that he always left precisely 1 hour later, phone buzzing in his pocket as he made an excuse to duck out. I didn't tell them that each time he held my hand, his eyes darted to the clock, counting down the minutes until he could run to her. I just smiled. I smiled when he fed me soup I didn't ask for. I smiled when he fixed my blanket like I couldn't do it myself. I smiled when he kissed my forehead and said, "I'll be right back." Because I knew where he was going. To Summer. The older woman beside me watched him leave each night with a dreamy sigh. "He's really something, that husband of yours," she said one evening. "A man like that, hard to come by." I nodded politely. I can tell he loves you. You can see it in the way he fusses." I laughed softly. "Yes. He's very convincing." She didn't catch the undertone. Most people don't. They only see what they're told to see. And Jason Miller was very good at telling people what to see. The hospital room was always quiet after he left. I'd stare at the wall, fingers running over the edge of the bracelet I kept hidden beneath my pillow. The one he would eventually give to Summer in the last life. Not this time. Now I kept track of everything. Every call he declined while sitting by my side. Every time he glanced at his reflection in the window, adjusting his hair like it mattered more than my comfort. Every fake laugh. Every hurried exit. And on the 5th night I saw the text notification on his phone screen when he forgot to turn it face down. "Summer kiss mark. Are you coming? I miss you." He didn't even blink as he slipped the phone into his pocket and said, "The partners need me on a late call. Don't wait up." I nodded. "Of course. I know how important your work is." He leaned in to kiss my cheek. I turned my face at the last second. He froze, lips brushing air. "Sorry," I said quickly. "I haven't washed my face yet. I didn't want to gross you out." He recovered with a smile, but I saw the crack behind it. His hand hovered, then fell back to his side. He said goodnight like it mattered. And left. Jason's birthday came 2 days later. In the past, I would have planned a week-long celebration. I used to buy his gifts months in advance, making sure they were wrapped in his favorite navy paper with the silver ribbon. I'd stay up until midnight just to send the first wish. But this year, nothing. No gift. No card. Not even a text. He walked in holding a paper bag and a bouquet of lilies. My least favorite flower, but he never remembered. "They didn't have tulips," he said, setting them down. "But I thought these were nice." I said, flipping a page in my magazine. He waited a moment as if expecting something. Eventually he said, "It's my birthday today." "Oh," I said as if the thought had just occurred. "Right. Happy birthday." There was a pause. A visible shift in his expression. Disappointment, like a child who didn't get the toy he wanted. I didn't even try to pretend to care. He sat in the chair beside my bed and pulled out a small cake from the bag. "I brought this for you." "How thoughtful," I said flatly. "Bringing your birthday cake to your sick wife. Very on brand." He cleared his throat. I thought we could share it. I stared at him for a long time. Then I said, you can eat your cake. I'm not hungry for anything expired. His eyes flickered. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled, resting my head against the pillow. Exactly what you think it does. He stood a few minutes later, clearing the cake away, face stiff. The silence between us was no longer awkward. It was icy. I'll come by tomorrow, he said tightly. Sure, I said. If you're not too busy celebrating elsewhere. He opened his mouth to say something, then thought better of it. And left. I sat there for a long time after he left. Once I would have cried. But now. I felt nothing. Not sadness. Not rage. Just clarity. The man who used to be my world was now nothing more than an actor in a very bad play. And I was done playing the fool. That night I opened my laptop. I started organizing the files I'd backed up in secret during my last life. Evidence. Documents. Things I'd never had the courage to use before. Not this time. I wasn't going to wait for the ceiling to fall again. Next time I'd be the one holding the hammer. I should have known Jason wouldn't give up easily. The next evening he showed up at my hospital room with a grin stretched so wide it looked painful. You're being discharged tomorrow, he said cheerfully. So I thought we could do something nice tonight. Low-key. Just you and me. I raised an eyebrow. You and me. He nodded. Dinner. Just a little early birthday celebration since you missed today. Sure, I said smoothly. Lead the way. Jason never did anything without a motive. And his sudden need for a private dinner didn't sit right. But I didn't protest. I just put on some light makeup, changed into the dress he brought me, one I hadn't worn in years, and let him wheel me out of the hospital with his usual performative tenderness. The drive was quiet. I watched him from the passenger seat, his hands gripping the steering wheel like they were holding secrets. He didn't speak until we turned down a familiar road, the one that led to his favorite rooftop restaurant. The usual place? I asked flatly. He chuckled. Thought it'd bring back memories. Oh, I'm sure it will, I said under my breath. When the elevator doors opened and we stepped into the private dining suite, I knew exactly what kind of memory Jason was trying to stage. The room was full. Not of servers or soft music. But of people. His friends. His colleagues. His law firm partners. And at the center of them all, standing tall in a slim-fitting silk dress and glossy curls, was Summer. Holding a knife and slicing into a massive 9-layer cake. Laughter burst from the group until they saw me. Then everything froze. A man halfway through clinking glasses coughed into his champagne. Another nearly choked on an olive. Someone's girlfriend muttered, "That's his wife," loud enough for the room to hear. And Summer, bless her bold little heart, froze for only a second before plastering on a sugar-sweet smile. "Rachel, you came too. How unexpected." Jason beside me shifted like he just remembered I could walk. I turned to him. "You told me this was private." It was supposed to be a surprise," he stammered. "For you." "Really?" I said, eyeing the giant cake with Summer written in golden icing. He followed my gaze and visibly winced. I looked back at Summer. "Your friends are practically throwing me out with their eyes." "Oh, don't be silly," she laughed, brushing hair from her shoulder. "We all just thought you were still in the hospital." "Surprise," I said dryly. I recovered. I rolled myself toward the table. My eyes swept the room, taking in every uncomfortable expression. And then, I saw it, dangling from Summer's left wrist. A thick, polished band of rich green jade. Deep in hue. Impossibly smooth. Familiar in every way. My breath caught in my chest. My grandmother's bracelet. The last thing she ever gave me. The one I'd buried in velvet. Hidden away. Treasured. And now it was on the wrist of the woman who stole my husband. I raised my voice calmly, letting it cut through the stunned silence. "Summer, where did you get that bracelet?" She blinked, feigning confusion. "This." She lifted her arm as if it were some cheap bauble. "Jason gave it to me." I turned my head slowly to Jason. "You gave her something of mine?" He looked around the room, clearly panicking under all the watching eyes. I didn't think. Summer's been having health issues. Jade is supposed to have healing energy." "That bracelet," I interrupted, voice razor sharp, "belonged to my grandmother. It's the only thing I have left of her. She raised me. And you gave it away. Summer's eyes flickered, but she didn't back down. You're his wife. It's shared property, isn't it? I gave a low laugh. Wrong. Premarital assets are not shared, Summer. Maybe try reading a marriage law textbook before flaunting stolen goods. The temperature in the room dropped. I want it back, I said coldly. Yow. She clutched her wrist. It's just a bracelet, Rachel. Don't make a scene. Jason jumped in. Let's not do this here. It's not worth arguing over. That's when a voice cut through the tension, smooth and laced with amused contempt. I'd argue it's worth quite a bit. Heads turned. Ethan West. Jason's old friend. His former law school roommate. The man who'd been watching quietly from the back, leaning against the window sipping his drink like he was at a movie premiere. Ethan sauntered forward, glass in hand. That bracelet's not just jade, he said. It's full green type of Burmese jade. No dye. No enhancements. Just natural imperial stone. How would you know? Summer snapped. He smirked. Because I asked a friend who works at Christie's. Based on the color and clarity, that piece on your wrist is worth at least 3 million yuan. The entire room inhaled at once. Summer's face paled. Jason stared at her. You said it was only worth a few thousand. I must have been mistaken, she stuttered. I didn't know. I turned back to her, voice like steel. You didn't know because you weren't supposed to have it. Jason looked at me, hands raised in surrender. I'm sorry, Rachel. It was my fault. If you're angry, blame me. Oh, don't worry, I said sweetly. I do. Summer reached to take the bracelet off. But I didn't move. She hesitated. Do you want me to? I lifted my hand. Don't drop it. And place it into my palm. She peeled it off slowly like it burned her and placed it into my hand. And in that moment I let the calm mask slip, just for a second. Not enough to scream. Not enough to rage. Just enough for them to feel the cold. Because I wanted them to see what was coming. And it had only just begun. The dinner ended in silence. Even after Summer reluctantly slipped off the bracelet and dropped it into my palm, no one dared speak. Not Jason, who looked like a kicked puppy in an expensive suit. Not Summer, whose face was frozen in disbelief. And definitely not the rest of the guests, who suddenly found their wine glasses very interesting. I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. I slipped the jade bracelet into my purse, nodded to Ethan and turned my wheelchair toward the elevator. Jason caught up just as the doors closed. Rachel, wait. I didn't. Outside he jogged ahead of me like we were still playing house. Can I give you a ride back to the hospital? I narrowed my eyes. No need. I'm not going back to the hospital. He blinked. Then, where? Pie House. That wiped the fake concern right off his face. I'll drive you. No thanks, I said, pulling out my phone. I'll get a ride. Ethan stepped up behind me without missing a beat. I'll take her. Jason's jaw clenched. Ethan, you don't have to. I want to, Ethan cut in smoothly. Unlike some people, I don't leave women behind under falling ceilings. Jason turned pale. I didn't smile. I just let Ethan will me away. The drive was short. Too short. Because when we turned the corner onto my street, dread pooled in my stomach like spoiled wine. I stared at the house in front of us. It had the same number. The same porch light. The same blooming magnolia tree in the yard. But the door was different. It was sleek and new, matte black with a silver handle, definitely imported and absolutely not the one I had installed. Ethan parked and helped me out of the car. Do you want me to knock? No, I said, already pulling out my phone. I tapped into my home security app, except nothing connected. No live feed. No alerts. No sign of the interior cameras. They cut the surveillance, I muttered. Ethan's expression darkened. Want me to kick the door in? Not yet. I tapped in a few more codes. Still nothing. I need a locksmith. He was already dialing. The locksmith arrived 20 minutes later. Young, awkward, and clearly intimidated by Ethan standing at the gate with arms crossed like a bodyguard. The man examined the door with a low whistle. This is a Class B smart lock with reinforced core. Imported. Expensive. How long to open it? I asked. Legally. 4 hours. If I break it? 10 minutes. Break it. The man hesitated. Ma'am, that would damage. I said break it. He lifted his tool bag, but before he could start, a voice rang out behind us. You touch that door and I'll call the police. We all turned. There she was. Summer Holland. Wearing my silk robe. Standing on my porch. On my property. The sheer arrogance of it almost made me laugh. You changed the lock, I said flatly. She folded her arms. Of course. Your old one was flimsy. I was scared living alone. I narrowed my eyes. You're not alone. You're in my house. Jason told me to treat it like home. Oh, I'm sure he did, I said with a tight smile. And did he tell you to ransack the place too? She scoffed. I made a few changes. You broke the cameras. You boxed up my clothes. You trashed my skincare. That's called redecorating. I turned to the locksmith. Smash the lock. Summer's face twisted. You'll regret this. That door cost over 50,000 yuan. If you break it, you'll have to pay me back. I barked a laugh. You want me to pay you for a lock you installed on a house you don't own? It was a gift, she shouted. Jason gave me this place. Funny, I said, pulling the deed from my bag. Because my name's still on the property. The locksmith glanced between us, unsure. Ethan stepped in, voice calm but dangerous. Break it. 2 bangs later, the expensive lock lay in shattered pieces at our feet. Summer stood frozen. I wheeled forward, right through the threshold of my own house, and stopped. The sight made me nauseous. Women's heels scattered near the door. My favorite painting gone. The family photos replaced with framed quotes like, "Love wins," and "Home is where he is." In the bedroom, my clothes were jammed into plastic bins and shoved onto the balcony. My jewelry box was empty. The drawers gutted. My perfume, smashed. I heard Ethan whistle low behind me. They didn't just move in. They tried to erase you. I want the police, I said coldly. He nodded and pulled out his phone again. The officers arrived 10 minutes later. Jason arrived 5 minutes after that, breathless and panicking. Rachel, listen. It's all a misunderstanding. No, I said, turning to the officer. This woman broke into my home, stole my belongings, and destroyed my property. Summer put on her best victim face. I lived here with Jason. He said it was okay. He even charged me rent. The officer looked at me. Did you receive rent payments? No. Do you have a lease contract? She hesitated. It was verbal. Convenient, Ethan muttered. I pointed toward the hallway. There are cameras in the bedroom and study. Hidden but active. They back up to my computer. You'll find all the footage there unless she smashed that too. Summer went still. Jason paled. You installed hidden cameras? She hissed. In my house. I shot back. Yes. The officers followed me to the study. The laptop had been knocked off the desk, but the hard drive was intact. With Ethan's help, we recovered the backup feed. It was all there. Summer wearing my clothes. Selling my jewelry. Flipping through cash like she owned the place. The officers didn't hesitate. They cuffed her on the spot. Jason tried to intervene. Wait, don't arrest her. This is just a domestic dispute. She stole over 200,000 yuan in goods, one officer said. That's grand theft. Summer wailed as they dragged her out. Jason turned to me, face flushed with panic. Rachel, please. Don't do this. I looked him dead in the eye. You already did. I wheeled past him, never looking back. I had just returned to the hospital when the phone rang. Unknown number, but the ringtone was unmistakable. I hadn't heard it in months, because I'd blocked it in my past life. But this was a second chance. So I answered. The moment I pressed the phone to my ear, a shrill voice pierced through like a knife. Rachel Green. What is wrong with you? There she was. Jason's mother. Classic heels, clinking pearls, and the moral compass of a fox in a henhouse. I just got off the phone with Jason. He told me what you did, calling the police on Summer? Making a scene in front of his friends? How could you be so heartless? I didn't respond. You've always been so petty, she hissed. Jason brings home a guest and you treat her like a criminal. She's just a girl. And you're trying to ruin her life over a stupid bracelet. 200,000 yuan in stolen goods isn't petty, I said flatly. Oh please, she spat. Even if she did take something, so what? You're married. You share everything. And why are you dragging Jason into all this? He's such a good man, he took care of you when you were sick. He bought you that house. I bought the house, I interrupted coldly. There was a long silence. You really are ungrateful, she said finally. Your parents didn't raise you right, clearly. Oh wait, I forgot. You didn't have any. And just like that, the dam snapped. I sat up straighter in the hospital bed and smiled, tight and venomous. You want to talk about family? I said calmly. Let's talk. When Jason needed money for law school, my grandmother, yes, the one whose bracelet your precious Summer wore, sold her wedding gold to help him pay tuition. When you needed surgery and couldn't afford it, I took a personal loan to help cover the hospital bills. When you had that ridiculous fall last year, who sat at your bedside every day because Jason was too busy? I did. And yet you still looked down on me. You always acted like you were doing us a favor. No, I said sharply. I acted like your family mattered. But you've been condescending since day one. You called me bad luck because my parents died. You told relatives I was nothing without Jason. And now you expect me to let your son's mistress rob me blind and walk away smiling? Her breathing grew rapid. You're crossing a line. No, you crossed it. Years ago. Then I hung up. And this time I blocked her number. Permanently. I didn't stop there. I opened the family group chat on my phone, the one Jason's mother had proudly added me to the week after our wedding. It was full of birthday wishes, gossip, and endless photos of Jason's childhood trophies. She'd even added Summer to the group a few weeks back, smugly calling her like a second daughter. I hadn't said anything then. But now. I dropped the theft report directly into the chat. Then I followed it with a 2-minute video clip. Summer in my robe digging through my drawers, stuffing jewelry into a handbag. And the cherry on top? Jason walking in and helping her. No sound. Just visuals. But the silence was louder than any scream. I ended with one sentence. This is what your golden boy and his second daughter were up to. Summer owes me $200K. Jason, get ready to meet my lawyer. The chat exploded. Aunt Lila, is this real? That's Rachel's necklace. Uncle Ben, I always knew that Summer girl was too clingy. Cousin Marie, Jason seriously? In her robe. Random great uncle I'd never met, shameful. What happened to values? Jason's mom. Message deleted. Jason's mom. Message deleted. Jason's mom. Message deleted. I watched her try to clean up the mess, but it was too late. Screenshots were already flying. Relatives who once fawned over her were now quoting scripture about betrayal and karma. I sipped my tea in silence and closed the app. Jason showed up at the hospital the next morning. Unshaven. Slumped. Pathetic. He held a bouquet of wilted roses, probably grabbed last minute from a street vendor. I brought these, he said, setting them on the table. I stared at them. How thoughtful. Dead flowers for a dead marriage. Rachel, please. I messed up, I know. But you didn't have to send that video to the whole family. My mom fainted from shock. Good. Maybe it'll restart her brain. He flinched. Rachel, I want to fix this. I tilted my head. Why? Because I love you. I raised an eyebrow. You love me? Or you just love the fact that I haven't sent your company the evidence of your little kickback scheme yet? He paled. Don't look so surprised. Your mother brags about your brilliance so much, she practically handed me a map to the crimes. He looked down, lips pressed in a tight line. You want forgiveness? I said softly. File the divorce. Rachel. I reached into the drawer beside my bed and pulled out a folder. Inside were 2 things. 1. Divorce papers. Already filled. Already signed by me. 2. A thick stack of financial statements, payment transfers, and emails, all with his name on them. I held up the folder with a calm smile. You have one choice, Jason. Walk away quietly. Or I burn everything you've built. His eyes darted to the window. Like he was calculating the cost of escaping this room. Tick-tock, I said. And for once Jason Miller had no words. We sat in a quiet cafe across from Jason's law firm. The same one where we'd celebrated his promotion years ago. Same table even. But this time I wasn't there to toast his success. I was there to end it. Jason fidgeted across from me, hands locked together like a prayer that wasn't going to be answered. He looked older than he had just a week ago, hollow-eyed and wrinkled around the mouth. The guilt must have finally set in. Or maybe it was just the fear. I slid the divorce papers across the table. Neat. Final. Irrevocable. I want 70. He blinked. What? The assets split, I said. 70-30. I get 70. His face twisted. That's not fair. You cheated, I said simply. Minor, major, doesn't matter. You violated the marriage contract. So I'm taking what's mine. And then some. He scoffed, masking panic with mockery. You think I'll sign this? You'll be stuck in court for years, Rachel. Not really. I opened my bag and pulled out another folder. Thicker one. Jason's smirk vanished as soon as he saw the seal of the auditing firm on the cover. You remember this, don't you? I said, flipping it open. You took kickbacks from that housing development project in Yenching. Funneled it through your cousin's company. That was what? 6 months ago. He said nothing. I flipped another page. Then there's the inflated legal consultation fees to Summer's cousin's shell company. That one's messier but still provable. Where did you get these? Your mom's bragging, I said with a smile. She talks too much. He slumped in his seat, eyes locked on the papers. If I give you 70, what do you do with these? I destroy them, I said. You walk away. Quietly. With dignity. Jason stared at the documents for a long time. His pride warred with his self-preservation. But in the end, reality won. He signed. 3 strokes of a pen and everything between us was over. I took the papers back, slid them into my folder and stood. I'll submit them this afternoon. Congratulations, Jason. You're finally free. But I wasn't done yet. Next stop, Summer's parents. I didn't want to deal with them. But she owed me over 200,000 yuan in damages, and I wasn't letting that slide. I wasn't Jason. When I arrived at their modest home, both her mother and father looked like they'd aged 10 years overnight. Her father answered the door, clearly tense, while her mother hovered nearby with trembling fingers. Miss Green, he said awkwardly. Please come in. I did. Fully. Letting them feel every step of my entrance like it carried the weight of their daughter's disgrace. I'm not here to argue, I said. Just to collect what I'm owed. I handed them the itemized damage report, receipts, and the police report. Her father's eyes widened. Her mother's lips tightened. We didn't know it was this serious, her mother finally said. Summer told us. Well, she downplayed it. I raised an eyebrow. Did she also downplay the jail time? They flinched. Her father stood. Okay. Please give us the bank details. No need, I said standing. Come with me. We'll go to the bank together. Their faces fell. I'd feel more secure watching the transaction myself, I added gently. After all, you understand, I've had some trust issues lately. They followed. After the transfer cleared, I turned to them in the back seat of the cab. There's one more thing I'd like you to see, I said. They looked at each other nervously. What? You'll see. I led them to the apartment Jason and I used to share. The one he used to sneak Summer into. I'd had someone track her phone location after her release. She hadn't gone home. She'd gone there. I stood at the door, pulled out the spare key I still had and knocked loudly anyway. Summer's voice came from inside. Jason. I knocked again. She swung the door open, wearing one of Jason's old t-shirts, and froze. Mom? Dad? Their faces were thunderclouds. You're living here? Her mother said sharply. After everything? Summer tried to recover. It's just temporary. Jason said I could. Before she could finish, her mother slapped her. Hard. Summer gasped, eyes filling with tears. You've disgraced us enough, her mother hissed. And you're still clinging to him like a barnacle? After stealing, lying, getting arrested. Summer looked around for help. At me, at the walls, at the floor. But no one moved. Me. I pulled out my phone and slowly turned it toward the room, filming the scene. The matching pillows. The clothes strewn about. My framed photo with Jason, now shoved behind a new one of her and him. Rachel, what are you doing? She said, voice sharp. Documenting. For what? She snapped. I'd like to press further charges. Theft again. You have no proof. I tilted my head. I'm standing in it. Her parents didn't stop me. They didn't even speak. They just looked around in horror at what their daughter had done. When the police arrived, again they didn't bother asking questions. They recognized her. And me. Summer didn't even cry this time. She just whispered under her breath, "This isn't over." I smiled as they took her away. No. But it's getting there. The civil office was quiet that morning. Too quiet. The clerk barely looked up as she pushed a clipboard across the counter. "Sign here when you're ready," she said, eyes already drifting back to her phone. Jason stood stiffly beside me, arms crossed, jaw tight. He hadn't said a word since I arrived. I didn't bother breaking the silence. We both knew why we were here. I picked up the pen and hovered over the dotted line. That's when the door flung open behind us. And in waltzed Summer Holland, belly slightly rounded beneath her designer dress, hand resting dramatically against her stomach. Tight, smug. No shame. No remorse. Just gleaming pride and delusion. "Sorry for the intrusion," she said sweetly. Jason didn't want me to feel left out. I turned slowly. Jason's face darkened. "Summer, what are you doing?" She didn't answer him. Her eyes were locked on me. "I just thought Rachel should know. I'm pregnant." Her voice echoed through the sterile room like a bomb dropping. The clerk glanced up in interest. Jason groaned softly. I didn't blink. "Congratulations," I said flatly. "I hope you raise your child better than you were raised." She smiled as if I'd complimented her. "Jason and I are registering our marriage right after this." "No, we're not," Jason snapped. Summer's smile faltered. "What?" "I said we're not," he repeated louder. "You talk too damn much, Summer." The room went still. Even I was surprised. But only a little. Because I'd seen the cracks. He blinked quickly, trying to recover. But Jason, you said." "I said a lot of things to shut you up," he growled. "And I regret every one of them." Her hand dropped from her belly. She looked like she'd just been slapped. I turned back to the clipboard and signed my name with one graceful stroke. Freedom, inked in black and white. As Jason reached for the pen, I pulled a manila envelope from my bag. He eyed it warily. "What's that?" "Your future," I said, sliding it across to him. "Corporate evidence. Every file. Every payment trail. Every lie." His hand froze. "You said." "I said I'd hand it over once the divorce was finalized. And now it is." He didn't open it. He just held it like a ticking time bomb. And I stood up. "I don't care what you do with it," I said. "Burn it. Shred it. Frame it. It's yours now." Summer lunged toward him. "Jason, you promised me." He pushed past her without a glance. I walked out of the civil office with the sun on my face, my hands empty and not a single ounce of regret. 2 years passed. Quietly. Peacefully. Beautifully. I moved into a new apartment near the sea. I planted herbs on the balcony. I drank tea without looking over my shoulder. I found peace in the smallest things, like buying my own groceries or sleeping diagonally across the bed without guilt. And then one day Liam West showed up at my art studio. He walked in holding a coffee in one hand and a tabloid in the other. "Guess who made front page?" he asked, sliding the paper across my desk. "Jason Miller. Former Rising Star attorney. Now inmate number 3812. Charged with embezzlement, fraud, and bribery. Sentenced to 7 years. I raised an eyebrow. What finally brought him down? Liam grinned. Summer. She found him cheating with a 22-year-old receptionist. Got mad. Handed over every document you gave Jason 2 years ago. I sipped my tea. Did she know it came from me? No idea, Liam said. But you knew she'd crack. Didn't you? I smiled. I gave her the match. Let her burn the house down. He laughed. You're terrifying. Thanks. I thought that was the end. The chapter was closed. The ashes settled. But fate loves a twist. It happened on a Tuesday. Ordinary sunlit still. I was locking up the studio when I felt it. That strange sensation like a pair of eyes burning into your back. I turned. And there she was. Summer. Gaunt. Bald-eyed. Hair matted. Clothes torn. Holding a kitchen knife. I barely had time to gasp before she lunged. But someone tackled her from the side. Liam. He wrestled her to the ground, kicking the knife out of her hand. Summer thrashed, screaming. You were supposed to die, she shrieked. That day, under the ceiling, you were supposed to die. Sirens wailed in the distance as people flooded from nearby shops. Someone had already called the police. Liam pinned her down, panting. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he snapped. He kept screaming. I calculated the angle. I studied the floor plans. Jason was supposed to shield me. You were supposed to be gone. I froze. The air around me thinned. As I realized, she had known. Not just about the building. She had planned it. She had known exactly where the ceiling would fall. And I was never supposed to survive. When the officers arrived and dragged her away, she turned to me one last time. "I should have won," she hissed. I stepped forward, calm and still. "But you never even came close." The sirens grew louder as the street blurred into motion. Bystanders gasping, someone yelling that there was blood, another voice crying, "She had a knife." But I couldn't hear any of it. All I could hear was her. Summer's voice, ragged and raw, as officers dragged her off the pavement and shoved her into the back seat of the squad car. "She was supposed to die," she screamed, trying to kick free. "That day in the restaurant, she was supposed to die." The officer slammed the door shut. But her voice had already punctured the air like a siren. My legs buckled. Liam caught me before I hit the ground. "Rachel," he said, holding me steady, his hand trembling. "Are you okay?" I wasn't sure how to answer that. My heart thundered. My skin felt too tight. My thoughts spun like wind-blown leaves. She said, "She knew," I whispered. "About the building. About the ceiling." He looked me in the eye. "It wasn't a coincidence, was it?" I shook my head slowly. "No. It never was." The police later confirmed everything. Summer had accessed confidential maintenance reports from a friend who worked in the real estate department. She'd known about the faulty piping, the old support beams, the structural risks. She'd studied them, cross-checked the angles, chosen the exact table to sit at, pushed Jason to take me there under the guise of a reconciliation lunch. She knew it would collapse. She had hoped Jason would save her. She hadn't counted on me surviving. The case made the news for a full week. Disgraced mistress behind assassination attempt. Complete with courtroom sketches of Summer screaming at the judge, declaring that she was the one wronged. But there was one line that chilled me more than anything else. She kept saying it wasn't supposed to be this way, the officer told me. That this was her second chance. That she already knew how things were going to go. I knew then. Without question. Summer had been reborn too. She remembered the past life. She remembered Jason choosing her. She remembered the accident, and decided to manipulate it. Only this time heaven chose differently. I survived. I reclaimed what was mine. And she lost everything. Weeks passed. Summer was convicted on multiple counts: attempted murder, conspiracy, theft, and obstruction. Jason remained in prison. No visitors. No letters. No more escape routes. I returned to my quiet life. One evening, Liam and I sat on my porch overlooking the sea. The wind danced through the jasmine vines, and the sunset painted everything gold and crimson. He poured 2 cups of tea and nudged mine toward me. "You never told me what happened with the bracelet." I smiled softly. The jade bracelet rested on my wrist, glowing gently under the fading sun. "My grandmother gave it to me when I was 16, I said. "She said it would protect me." I didn't believe her. Not really. But I kept it anyway. Liam glanced at the intricate carvings. "Summer wore that once, didn't she?" "She stole it," I said simply. "Wore it like a trophy. Like she could take everything from me and wear my life like a skin." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. We both knew. That bracelet had outlived betrayal, fire, steel beams, lawsuits, and lies. And somehow, it had come back to where it belonged. I took a sip of tea, watching the waves crash gently against the shore. "She tried to steal my life," I whispered, voice calm. "Steady. Sure. I reclaimed it. I turned to him. And built something better." The end.